Welcome to the Value Maker podcast. My name is Ryan Perst. I'm your host, supported by Heather Bicknell, as we meet with the people that make the digital workspace work. It's about the technology, it's about improving people's work experience and finding the return on value.
How's it going?
Yeah, fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not. We're having very strange things with Teams at the moment where it just randomly decides to turn off your microphone. Yeah.
Bit of time. That's fun.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Random is fun.
yeah. And it sometimes happens in the middle of you saying something really profound that you can't remember what you said after you said it because you didn't expect the microphone to turn off.
Oh no. I have to tell people, just trust me, it was amazing. Well, I do something we could chat about today, but I wanted to see if you had anything on your mind.
Well, I mean, we're going to rename the podcast to Value Makers.
Value Makers, like
I
them, right?
did an episode straight after our one last week with I won't mention his name now, with Mercer, Chris Mercer, and he loved it. So we're on for that. Yeah. So we're going to start rebranding, which is exciting.
Super exciting.
Did
I like
you,
the white version. I like the white version, by the way.
Yeah, everyone liked the white version.
I think the red on black is just a little like horror kind of colors to me. Maybe. Like a little vampire like vampiric. So I like the white.
It's quite funny because I like the red one. I only like the red one. So I'm glad we didn't go with my recommendation.
Well, you could do like a red shadow maybe or something around the white letters. Maybe there's a happy medium. I think also I've learned more over the past few years about color accessibility. And I think the contrast of red and black is probably not an accessible pairing in terms of colors for people who have like limited, visual spectrum of what colors they can see. So white on black is obviously, that pops really well for people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can try it out and see what happens, and we don't like it.
Always change it, as we've learned.
Exactly.
I think something like if you did like a cutout of yourself and put it on, how people will have like pictures of the host on the cover art for the podcast. That's one idea. But yeah, super exciting. And glad to immediately start using the name, and it worked out. So
Oh, why wait?
why wait?
And I think that's the biggest problem with people in life is overanalyze, and they think about stuff forever and ever and ever, and they never get anywhere.
Yeah, I get that.
Anyway, so what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. I can yap about my thing. Well, I've come across a few examples of generative AI video recently that I thought were interesting or worth talking about. The first is the use of Sora, so OpenAI's video component, to produce a founding story for the brand Toys R Us. Are you familiar with Toys R Us as a company at all?
Oh, yeah. I remember buying my first toy in Hong Kong at Toys R Us.
Okay, I wasn't sure if they were international or if it was just...
Oh, yeah, they are. They're big. In fact, when I was 6 years old, I had my first trip to Hong Kong, and I went to Toys R Us, and I think Toys R Us didn't exist in South Africa in those days. It only when we finished not the apartheid, but it was apartheid. We had the coming out part, the sort of sanctions ending. That's when Toys R Us came into the country.
Yeah, so it was a big part of my childhood too. So you probably know that it went out of business a number of years ago now, but they're sort of bringing it back in a limited way of having it inside of another department store inside of a Macy's. But anyway, that's just to set the context of what the Toys R Us brand is. Very magical brand, all about toys, childhood imagination, like kids' favorite place, basically. It's just a big place full of toys. So I don't know if you've seen the video that they created with generative AI, but it's, let me find it. Have you watched it yet?
No, I haven't at all. Tell me about it.
So they used Sora to create a vision of there's like sorry, I'm trying to find it for you at the same time. The founder of Toys R Us had some dream when he was a kid about, a magical place filled with toys. And that's apparently what inspired him to start the Toys R Us brand. So they used Sora to tell that story. And it is very interesting. So I just dropped, I think that's the full thing for you to watch. If you want to just take it, only is like a minute long if you want to watch it now so we can discuss.
Wow, this is amazing.
So we see this very, human like, but obviously it's got that uncanny valley AI human boy.
So that's all generated.
It's all generated. Yeah.
Holy
I mean,
moly.
they didn't say, if they did any cleanup or anything like that, but supposedly all generated.
Yeah, that is, I mean, so it's quite funny. About 4 years ago, I started thinking about what would be a cool way to do animations where you just write a script and we just generate automatically. But I thought that technology was probably, and I sort of wrote there like 2030 as a thing. And here it is. I mean, if that's off the script, and I mean, it's actually quite amazing because I've been playing with all the various engines at the moment. So we've got Gemini, which is Google's one. We've got Gorak, what's it called? Grok, which is thingies, Elon Musk's. We've got obviously ChatGPT, and I mean, ChatGPT is very mature in comparison to the other ones. And the maturity for me is not so much the language models themselves, which I mean obviously are an easy one to measure. How many tokens can they process and how many tokens they got, etc. But the ability to create your own GDP, that's the amazing piece, because you can't do that with Gemini or with Grok yet. So as much as those things are useful, well, they are useful even in their current state. They do some weird things. In fact, there's a few videos about like weird things that Gemini said, like if you want to make your cheese stick to your toast, put some super glue in it or something. But that ability to create your own GDP, and I've turned off that using my data to train the model, so I can put stuff in it and supposedly is partitioned. But it's useful, like when someone gives me a whole lot of documentation to read, I don't read it. I just put it into my GDP. I create a new GDP, I put it in there, and then I ask questions. And I find that far more useful than reading 10 pages or 10 documents. And I was going through APIs the other day, and I'd asked the developer to give me the APIs. And he gave me all the responses as JSON. I put them into a document, uploaded them, and I was able to ask for a tabled version of all the methods of what they had with an interpretation of how to use them, which is something you can only really do with a ChatGPT container, because you don't want to put that stuff into Gemini or into Grok directly. Now, going back to this video, if you were able to, you have a product built on rebuilt value, and you could train it on your product, all its features and functionality, and then you could get it to draw out or generate the animation of how to use the tool. That would be awesome. I mean, think how much training material you'd be able to generate, and not even have to generate. It could be generated on the fly. Like, think about how many times you have an Excel formula problem. Like, how do I do this formula? I can spit out the whole thing. But for someone that's not a fay with Excel, it could actually animate how you use Excel. Show you literally step-by-step video on the fly. That'd be
Yeah.
crazy.
I think the key is like, could it take a screen recording and keep the fidelity and the accuracy, but still do generative pieces? Because I think one of the interesting things about the video, and I don't know if it's just humans that it struggles with more, but you see the boy, he looks different, a little bit different in every scene. His glasses are a little bit different. The animation style is a little bit different. His face is a little bit different. So that is one of the kind of interesting things about generative video tools. Or I saw one the other day that was, give me 3 dogs in a field, and it gave 4 because it doesn't understand numbers in the same way when it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
to that kind of an output. So it's like that. If you wanted something that was of a software product, let's say, and it kind of kept making little tweaks to your UI, it's like, what is the margin of error that's still acceptable here? But yeah, it's incredibly powerful, super interesting. I did find the story itself of the video a little underwhelming, especially for, a toy brand and a founding story. It was kind of like just okay. I thought not like, it's not like a tearjerker. It didn't fill me with some sort of emotion. It was kind of just like,
Well, it
childlike
was,
wonder.
it,
Yeah.
it is clearly, I mean, it's clearly artificial
Mhm.
would be the thing that I mean, the minute I mean, okay, fair, I went into it with the view that it was generated. So I expected it to be artificial. But if you think about storyboarding, and trying to conceptualize your advert you're going to go and create. And you can generate some of that using generative AI. How much time that would cut down for you? Because I agree with you. It wasn't, you could see it's not a polished product, or maybe it is polished. I don't know, depending on what they were intending with it. But if you could go and generate something like that, and you could do that in an hour, 2 hour sprint of work, and then take that and go and polish it up and make the proper version. I mean, what might be a argumentatively 12-week exercise could be done in 6 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 weeks, because you've taken all the pain of mock-ups and conceptualization, and you're just generating an improving thing. And then, I mean, I get what you're saying with the problem of interpretation, because something like the word for could be for as a number, or for as in for this thing, which already I can tell you, you can see the problems with that. It's the same as a lot of the words in the English language that have different meaning depending on the context, which is where AI struggles, of course. And I mean, I've done it with generating the books for the kids, and we've tried to improve on the same image. And instead of improving on the image, it actually draws a completely different image every time. So you can't keep that theme consistent. Even though we've tried to change the EP to say only use these examples, it still creates brand new ones that don't match. And the car, which we've conceptually described, black car, purple wheels, intelligent AI, comes in different shapes each time. That's why it's a car that changes shape, because the AI keeps drawing the different shapes. But, that's almost the fun part of it. But I still think it cuts down a significant amount of time.
It's definitely a time saver. And the kind of executives who put this out were like, it was amazing. Like, this was so much faster and cheaper than, the traditional way. But I think what's interesting to me is that if you are a large legacy brand who can afford your own creatives, that path is always going to produce a higher quality output, I think. However, imagine like the possibilities for, a smaller org or a startup or like a local business who like didn't have access to that level and like that level of pure animation is it's like movie studio, it's very expensive to produce something like that. So like it makes producing something of that kind of style possible, which I don't think is that interesting if you have the money to throw at anything, and can produce the highest level of creative that, humans can produce. But if you don't have access to that, it really opens up that door, I think. So that's kind of where it's not like I felt like Toys R Us doing it seemed very random. It's such like a human, brand about children and like play. And it just seemed like a little bit of an odd fit. But you could imagine like another company doing it and it might not feel so odd.
So the example I think of where I think it's kind of a good thing in comparison is Diary of, well, it's a company, but it's a brand, I guess. Diary of a CEO. So that podcast is on YouTube is huge. It's 5 million subscribers. And what they do is they use the AI engine that they've built to test the different headlines for the episodes with different parts of, and do the slicing of the different parts of the episode to promote it. And they do that and they measure it to see which headline pulls in you, and it's all clickbait based. And I think clickbait is kind of fine as long as there's truth that backs up the episode. So you can say like, "Stop coffee saved my life," is your clickbait. But actually it was cutting down the caffeine to 1 cup of coffee a day or whatever it is. But there's still some validity in having caffeine. Yeah. That's a bad example. But what they're doing is they're sending out versions of the same episode with different things, but it's all autonomous. Now, the thing that kind of makes me laugh about this whole thing is that, and it's kind of your example too, is that if everyone has the capability to go and generate live stream adverts using AI, the amount of content that we already can't consume will just grow exponentially to the point that you will just be smothered by too much content. And I mean, in some respects, it might filter itself because you'll be in the same vein, but those who generate the most content will be seen the most. So Toys R Us could have 1,000 adverts because they could pay, instead of paying for 1 advert, they can just pay for 1,000. So you as the small business could only afford 1 on this generative platform is now going to compete against a large corporate that's going to put 1,000 out because they can do 1,000 times the volume. So you just won't compete.
Have you heard of the dead internet theory?
No, tell me.
It's a theory with the rise of AI that the internet will essentially become useless because you get AI talking to AI, and
Mm.
it's just kind of like you're in a sea of junk and everything is drowned out. I think people point about there have been examples on Facebook of like AI accounts and posting really odd AI imagery and getting interaction. And it's like, who's interacting with it? Is it a mix of humans and other AI? Is it all AI? But basically, yeah, sort of akin to the content overload, but with AI. Speaking to AI.
It does make sense to me. I think what will happen is that to some extent, because already the content's too much. And in some respects, you're going to need an AI to filter it for you. Personalized messaging and filtering and personalized services will just become more and more important. The internet as it stands is really how much is what you can search. And if you use the biggest providers, they only cover 10 or 20% of the internet. So it's really a failing model in some respects, if you think about it, because you can't see the whole thing and you can't see what you don't have. And the way content's being created, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's a universe that keeps growing, a galaxy keeps expanding. So the only way you could, in theory, traverse it is to have AI that can scale to digest it all or scan it all to come up with a summary for you. And then when you ask your question, which will be through an interface, which will be abstracted from the internet, you're not going to touch the internet per se. The internet is just a content delivery mechanism for the AIs to use. And your AI might live in your area of the internet, but it's relying on other background services behind it, or AI behind it to answer the question. So there's no real, you're not touching, you're one more level extracted is what I'm probably saying, as opposed to being like now we're one, if the internet is level 0, we're probably like level 3 with search engines. And you can go down level lower where if you know the IP address or the website name. So let's say website would be your first level next, then your IP address, and then you're on the bare bones to know the actual machine hosting the website. But yeah, the AIs will probably, because of the volume of content, I think you'd be extracted higher up in order to process it to get to what you need, which would make sense to me.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I think about what Google's doing with Gemini and putting it on all searches and what that means. I did have another AI video example to share. And unfortunately, I don't have a clip of this one, but I was at a conference last week and they showed an example of personalization at massive scale. So it's a company with thousands of employees and they had their kind of quarterly video from their CEO. And the start of the video is him talking to camera and they use the AI that can translate your voice into any language, but it still sounds like you. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's very natural sounding. Like it could make you, sound like you're speaking Japanese or Swahili or kind of any language, but it still has like your voice, your intonations.
I did see that. In fact, we had a conversation at lunch the other day with somebody who's got their own service like that, where you can phone in and speak to them in any language. Give me the phone number, and you find the phone number, and it speaks to you in the language you choose fluently, allegedly.
Interesting. So yeah, so they did that to personalize it to their global workforce. So first of all, he's like, I want you to hear me in your native language. We're using AI, like blah, blah, blah. And then it cuts away to they've introduced an AI avatar version of him who's, they wanted to provide a personal note for everyone, but like doing that, it's just too hard. So they're doing it with the help of their like AI assistant. So each video for each employee features unique scenes. And one is the CEO basically being like, great job, so and so, for a great quarter. And he'll either like tattoo your name on his forearm, or like he has a mug that's like world's best employee, your name, or like just different variations of something clever with the employee's name. And then there's a second segment of the video where they bring in I would assume someone's like maybe like the C-level who's aligned to their line of business. So another person, and it's different for different videos, who kind of does the same thing, comes on, say, really want to deliver a personal message to you. And then it features that person, kind of like a funny series of clips of that person, like rock climbing or surfing or playing golf or making spaghetti, or, so they have some repository of employee interests, or maybe they ask about them for this purpose. I don't know. But each video features, there's 2 levels of personalization. And the second one is just your C-level or your boss or whoever doing a series of things that are of your
You
interest.
you could see it being positive, but you can also see it being used in a dangerous way. Deepfakes, obviously being quite dangerous,
Yes.
but the positive. But I mean, you look at sometimes you get these messages on LinkedIn where someone's got a video they've recorded, or hey Ryan, I wanted to share this and this and this with you. Now, to do that manually per person would take a long time. But if you use an AI, and we use Descript with the podcast, for example, you can fix the language pretty quickly. You could fix the placeholder for the name quite easily. Go, hey, Heather, hey Ryan, hey Annabelle, whatever, and there's been the same content thereafter. So it's only changing one word, and the AI can just fix that.
Yep. Very interesting stuff. Personalization
Yeah.
at scale is possible. Is it cheap? Not always, but it is possible.
Well, I think that's the irony is that as fast as this stuff will move as fast as it can, but who's going to pay for it, and how they're going to pay for it? So we'll see. We have to watch that one in anticipation.
Yeah.
Cool.
For sure.
Thanks, Heather. We'll chat later.
That's good. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with your friends and colleagues. Help us grow our network. Please also check out our website at www.valuu.work and our product that's on there. It's something we worked really hard on, and we hope that it benefits you.